Okay, so we're starting with Demian's history as a trader, or maybe a bit more general. So go ahead.
Yeah. My story, how I got into this is, a lot of people out there are going to relate to it in a way because I have no background in finance or traditional trading. I actually lived my life as an adventurer and a traveler. And I worked on boats, and I've been a professional skydiver for the last 12 years, teaching skydiving all over the United States and jumping all over the world. I have 16,000 jumps, and I'm a licensed instructor. And so, I know.
It's actually funny that our first skydive we did together here in Texel in the Netherlands, because Demian has been living in Amsterdam. And then my second skydive, I went to Miami to Demian, and he did like skydive number 7,000 something, and for me it was number 2.
Yeah, he was there the first time, but I just kept going, and I loved it. And I was obsessed with just traveling the world as much as I could, and skydiving was a great way to do that.
Yeah.
And so I get it. In a lot of ways, it actually seems very kind of nonsensical that I would move on to finance and trading. And obviously there's a lot of things that are not in common with that. But there is some things, because it's about processing emotions very quickly and staying focused. And so that really is going to help in helping me in life in general. And but how I got involved in trading and Bitcoin was that I've always been a big proponent of history and technology, and I always believed that there was a purpose to humanity and the internet and where we were going, despite the fact that we live in a disconnect. And there's a lot of negative and possible existential threats from all of this. But I've always been optimistic, and I've not always known why. But what happened was that my son is very into video games, and I wasn't, but I was looking for another way to relate to him. And I got introduced to a virtual reality designer, and he took me in to his game, and I was blown away, and I thought it was a great way to bond with my son. And so I built like a gaming computer, and through that I met all these kind of like hacker kind of hippie guys, and we started a VR group, and they introduced me to the idea of the blockchain. And I saw the voting prototypes on Ethereum, and I was like, this thing clicked in my head. I was like, wow, if this could work, this could be a way to vote with our phones and enable a real democracy and have a real healthy purpose to the internet. And by coincidence, I watched a documentary about Warren Buffett that night. And he was having dinner with Bill Gates, and Bill Gates' dad came in, and they asked him, well, if there's one word to sum up your success, what would it be? And they both said focus. So at that time, I just became like learning everything I could about Bitcoin and the blockchain and distributed ledger technology, and I started to go to meetups and watch all the videos and read. And I realized the irony, because both Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are very bullish and negative on Bitcoin in general, but still, it's just kind of funny. If not anything, and if nothing else, it was a gateway into financial thinking and learning, and but from there I just started investing because I believed in it. And then for 2017, it was really easy to make money if you got in early enough, and you could easily just buy the dips or play the hard forks, which I did. And I didn't understand anything about traditional markets, and I thought that the parabolic rise would just lead into another parabolic rise. I thought that the retail boom would lead into institutional money and mainstream adoption. I knew that there was some sort of limitations with infrastructure, but I didn't understand how they really worked, and I didn't understand that the ebb and flow of traditional markets. And so I just held for most of the correction, but slowly I started to understand and follow more people that understood technical analysis and try to come up with a more sophisticated plan and a way to make money in all markets and to test my ideas and whether I should be so bullish on all of these things. And slowly it's led me into a strategy where I can stay in a position at all times and make money in most directions, and I'm still in the process of developing that, but I'm more in the process of developing my own emotion based on my ability to stay calm when I'm risking, or when I'm live with real money, and and that's led me to so many interesting, developments in my life, and also to go back to some of these incredible relationships, like people like I have, like Tim, that work in finance, and suddenly I can understand their passion for it, and we can bond on a new level. And Tim's always, throughout my whole life, always helped me with different ideas of understanding life and happiness and spirituality in general, because he's always been a master of being free thinking. And now, through my new passion of finance, I have a whole new way of bonding with him and other people, and a new way of learning. And it's been an amazing start to a journey.
So, and Demian, how did you get passionate about trading?
Well, like I was saying earlier, I've always been a big proponent of the future and technology, and then when I saw the idea of what distributed ledger, or like trusted entities from processing, could help for humanity and free up a lot of corruption and maybe enable a new democracy, that's what led me into Bitcoin. But then it was like, when the market corrected, and it forced me to seek a more viable real strategy, and I started to study technical analysis and different market theories, then a real different kind of passion started, and I saw what it was. I saw that finance and trading is actually the mapping of human emotion. It's taking a dance between buyers and sellers, and a dance between panic and fear, and putting it into geometrical patterns and into mathematical patterns, and then looking how those can be used to predict the future, or look back at the past. And the beauty of it to me is that it can be done right on very specific time scales, right down to a minute, or out through all of history. And you can't quite do that with anything else any other way when you try to map human emotion. Even with music and in art, there are mathematical aspects to it, but it's not as concrete, and it's not as a literal way of mapping the abstract. And so for me, Tim says I'm still in the exuberant phase, but I think it's just like one of my new life passions and skills that have, it's a real transition for me in life.
Yeah, that exuberance, that's actually a nicer word than euphoria. Let's say this, like this is where you get the energy from, and that is very important. So it's definitely not a bad thing, because without that energy, you're, like nothing will happen. Yeah, cool. So, and where do you live these days? Because we're in Amsterdam now.
We're in Amsterdam now.
In my studio.
So I've been in New York the last year, and I have a small trading group in New York, and we do a meetup through meetup.com. And before that, I was living in Miami for the last 7 years teaching skydiving, but I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. But I got the travel bug. I was more or less born with it, because I grew up, I'm a true dual citizen. My dad lived in Canada my entire life, and my mom lived in America, so I never lived in one country at one time. I would always go back and forth. And then as soon as I was old enough, I started to travel internationally and live in cheap countries, as cheap as I could, as much as I could, and do extreme sports. And but right now I live in New York, and I'm still trying to reinvent where I'm going to settle down, if ever.
If ever.